Okay, so I sold my 2007 Seasport twin engine boat, and I just wanted to do a short video on what it takes to get this boat operational and how to activate the subscription for the XM weather. Okay, one of the first things I want to point out, and this is kind of important, is here in Minnesota we got a goofy law that prohibits us from having a boat traveling down the road on a trailer with the drain plug installed. So when we get to the lake, got to make sure we put the drain plug in. It's in this drawer along with a little bit of pipe tape, the goofy looking key for the fuel tanks, and a whole packet of information. Inside here is some pretty useful information. This is a chart on how to operate the radar that looks for other boats. This is a reference chart that talks about the displays for the motors so we can see fuel used and speed and all that. This is the book for the XM weather radar. There's a phone number on here, weather XM phone number. If we open up the book, right here, underneath my finger, is the radio ID and information for setting up the subscription. One of the other things in the boat is before we can start the motors, we need to open this rear hatch here. So we're going to take this first latch and we're going to turn it about 90 degrees. The one on the port side, it's a little bit goofy. We flip it up. If we turn it 90 degrees, we can't open the hatch. Now, a lot of times people try to help me out. They do that, and then they start yanking on it. We just need to turn it back a little bit. About 45 degrees is what it takes. The hatch will open right up. In here, we have a couple things. This is the fuel valve for the starboard motor. That turns it on. This is the fuel valve for the port motor. That turns it on. This is a pump. This is pumps water into one of the tanks in the back. You could, go like a wash tank or whatever. Down below here, it's kind of hard to see in the video, but there's a valve. That valve needs to be open to let water into the pump from the lake. Here we have a couple switches. I just leave them in this position. This allows the port motor to suck fuel from the port tank, or you can flip it and suck fuel from the starboard tank. Same with the other side. Once we've done that, we close our hatch. If we ever needed to prime the motors and get some fuel up to the motors, we can open this little compartment. Those are those standard Yamaha fuel pump ball things. Anyway, I've never had to pump them. It's always worked good. You can open up this rear hatch. Got some switches in here. This is a shore charger. We can plug into an outlet and charge all the batteries, like a battery maintainer. This one here turns the motors on. The port battery does the port motor. Starboard battery does the starboard motor. If for some reason one of the motors was dead and you couldn't start one of the motors or one of the batteries, flip that up there. That links the two engine batteries together, allows you to start from either one. You just don't really want to run the engines very long with this in this position. That would be the normal position. This turns on the house battery. If the house battery were ever low or you wanted to link it to one of the motor batteries, just turn that a little farther. It is okay to run it in that position, but normally you'd run it in this position. This switch right here, this is your bilge pump. Just leave that on all the time. It's automatic. These do not need to be on for the bilge to have power. This switch here, we can hear the pump turn on. That's the pump that we just looked at that has the valve, and that pumps water up to this faucet in this little rear compartment. It's held open by this spring. A lot of times people are like, it doesn't close. You just push on the spring. Whoa, I'm gonna pinch my finger there. Anyway, it closes, obviously. This one here, that turns on another pump that pumps water through the live well where we would keep the fish if we wanted to keep them alive for some reason. All right, now we're going to move into the boat. We're going to fire up some of the electronics here. So we're just going to hit the power button, which is right there. And we'll turn this one on since we're in here. And we go to the startup screen. And we're going to get a shallow water alarm here in a second. We're going to agree. There's our shallow water, because obviously we're on the trailer. We just hit quit. And this one here, we're going to say agree. We're going to say quit. All right, so to activate the XM weather, what we're going to do is we're going to push and hold the adjust menu button. And that pops up this screen. And then we're going to hit down arrow. And we're going to move this all the way down. We're going to keep going down. Network, page, map, highway, XM. No signal while we're inside the shop. There's also no subscription right now. We're going to push the right arrow. That moves us to audio. And then I'm going to push it one more time to the right. And this puts us to no subscription. That's our service level. And that should say Master Mariner. Master Mariner is what we want. This is our radio ID number underneath my hand. And underneath there is the radio ID for the audio, which we don't really use the audio. I just kind of wanted to cover that up because I'm not really sure. I know this video is going to end up on the internet because I can't quite figure out a way to send a video direct. So I just didn't think it was a good idea to get those information out there. So on here, we're going to press and hold function to start. It says, are you sure? We say enter for yes, and that spins up the radar. We're going to look at a couple other buttons real quick here. So this top one here is the lights. Now, this aux3, what the heck is aux3? Well, what aux3 is when the engines are running, you need to turn on aux3. And what that does is that charges the house battery. If you don't charge the house battery, obviously the house battery runs dead, and you're like, what the heck's going on? Nothing's working. So whenever the engines are running, we need to hit aux3. That charges the house battery. When you turn it off, it does not charge it. A lot of boaters like to have that automatic. I like to have that manual. There's a few reasons. I'm not going to make a video on that right now, but either way, its system works great. It's just a manual. You turn it on, it charges. Turn it off, it doesn't charge. If you forget to turn it on, you're going to run the house battery dead. If you forget and you leave it on, you're going to run one of the motor batteries dead along with the house battery, obviously. Once you shut off those main power switches in the back, then everything shuts down. You've got a wiper button here. You hit it once, turns on one wiper. If we hit it again, turns on all the wipers. We hit it again, it turns it off. And then this one here is a blower defroster. We turn that on, and then we say, that's weird, nothing happened. What that does is that turns these fans on. Each one of these fans has a button on the back. If I hit it with my thumb, the fan turns on, the fan turns on, and the fan turns on. So now all three fans are on. A while back, I thought about just making that switch turn the fans on and not have buttons on the fans, but sometimes it's nice to only have one fan on instead of all the fans. The rest of these buttons are for lights and the horn, of course, stuff like that. That stuff should become pretty obvious. All right, so down here we got a switch. This is for the little paddles in the back. that bring the bow down, that kind of stabilize the boat. On a lot of boats, when you push up on the switch, that makes the bow go down. On this, when you push up on the switch, it makes the bow come up. When you push down on the switch, it makes the bow go down. So if you just push down on both of them, that'll make the bow go down. You push up on both of them, that raises the flaps in the back, or the trim tabs, I guess they would be called. So this raises the trim tabs. So up is raise, up makes the tab go up. So up would be the normal position. When we push down on this, that's where it's going to lift the back of the boat and make the front of the boat go down. That may be backwards from the operation on some boats. This is pretty standard Yamaha. To get it in gear, we just go forward, it's in gear, and then we got throttle. If all we want is throttle, we just push in right here, push it forward. Now we just have throttle. These are trim tabs, or not trim tabs, but tilt for the motors individually. And this is collective. This does both motors. Of course, we got our radio, our EPIRB. Kind of a cool feature here. If we push the distress button, the radio actually transmits the GPS location. The radio is actually linked up with the GPS on the boat. This is our EPIRB. You flip that switch, the Coast Guard comes looking for you. This EPIRB transmits boat information and GPS. We can see on the radar it's picking up a little signal from the garage door. If we cruise up to the front, we open up this compartment. This is our fuses. And this pump here, this switch here that's off right now, that's water for the sink. And I'm going to see if I can get a little bit more light in here. There we go. And this switch, this is a standby power source for the electronics, for the navigation. Up is normal, down would be like emergency. That would be like if you were in the fog and something happened and you needed navigation and it failed, you could lower that switch down. All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn the keys on real quick. Holy crap, that's probably pretty loud. All right, so here's our fuel flow and our fuel quantity. We can see our quantity is super low. This is our flow, gallons per hour, and total fuel used. And then that needs to be reset every time you fill the tanks with fuel. You can push these two buttons together and that'll reset that to 0. And then you know how many gallons of fuel you've used. All right, underneath this bench here, there's an outlet. That only has power when we're plugged into shore power, which is out here. And I have an extra cord that also charges the batteries. So here's a cord we made up one time when we were at the marina. We wanted to plug in, so this plugs into the boat, obviously. And this is some goofy marina plug we had to get at the marine store so we could plug into the outlet on the marine dock. One more switch in here I should probably mention is this switch right here. On, off. What that does is that turns on this inverter, which has an outlet so we can charge our cell phones and stuff. It's only 400 watt. Down here underneath the floor, some electronics in there. All right, I've crawled up on the roof here. So this is a life raft. If I remember right, it's a 6-person life raft. And what we do is we just unclip the 2 clips. And then if you were to pull this rope, the theory is this thing should inflate and you'll have a place to go. It's out of date, so it would need to be sent in and recertified. The fuel tanks, there's one here. It says fuel. This is on the port side. We have one on the starboard side. And then, kind of important, this one that looks the same, it says water. This is the water tank for the sink. All right, I just wanted to come back here. These are the trim tabs. These are obviously in the up position. If this trim tab were to go down, of course, that would make the back of the boat lift, which would drive the front of the boat down. One last thing, this is pretty obvious. When you tilt the motor forward, you got to be careful so we don't hit the buoy container thing here. So that's about it. It's been a great boat. I'm definitely going to miss it. Those are just some things I wanted to mention about the operation of the boat. Thanks for watching.